So, in this short video, I am going to go over section 3.2 in the marine science book, and this is page 66 to 67, and this is about feeding relationships. And when it all comes down to it, a lot in biology is about who is eating who and why. And it all comes down to that everything needs energy to survive. Without energy, there is no life. And the way that energy enters our food chain, our ecosystems, tells us a lot about how those work. And it's very important to understand how it is. So, there are two ways of energy to enter our ecosystem here. The photoautotrophs and the chemoautotrophs. Hard words, I know, but we'll live with it. Basically, auto means you're able to make your own food, and photo means doing so by light. So, photoautotrophs is just a fancy word for algae and plants, seaweed, any organisms who do photosynthesis. Chemoautotrophs are bacteria who can use chemical energy, usually found around volcanoes and other hotspots, to fixate carbon and thereby gaining energy and to grow. Photoautotrophic organisms, they need light, they need CO2, and they need water, and as we'll talk about later, they also need certain nutrients to grow. What we gain from that is oxygen and carbon fixated that will go into the food chain. Pretty important things, oxygen and fixated carbon here in the form of carbohydrates. This is a light dependent reaction, which means it can only happen in the upper parts of the ocean, as sunlight won't penetrate very deep into the ocean. Our chemoautotrophs are not light dependent, they're light independent, and often we'll find these at quite deep in the ocean, where we have cold seawater that runs through the seabed in here, gets superheated, filled with minerals, and then it bubbles out under pressure at a high temperature. Normally, this would be lethal. High pressure, poisonous chemicals, high temperature. But some bacteria has evolved so they're able to exist here, not only to exist, but to live and use all the chemical energy, the sulfur and the methane and other chemical compounds, to use that energy to grow. And this actually leads to entire ecosystems where we have a symbiotic relationship between these bacteria and the tube worms that can live next to these black smokers. So, autotrophs make their own energy. Heterotrophs, on the other hand, have to eat their energy by eating someone else. And here we have a classical food chain. We have our algae. Our algae get eaten by some small shrimps. That small shrimps get eaten by a fish, who will then get eaten by a bigger fish or a small shark. There are some words for this. We call everything here who makes their own energy, we call a producer, and whoever eats someone else is a consumer. So this is a first level consumer, a second level, and a third level consumer. We can also say this is a producer. This one here who eats plants is a herbivore, and the other here are carnivores, they eat meat. We also have, not drawn here, omnivores. Omnivores are organisms who eat both plant material, algae, and animals. And then the decomposers, who feed on whatever will land at the bottom of the ocean, leftovers, dead animals. A classic one here in Denmark are the common crabs, who will run around in the bottom of the harbor and eat anything that is thrown out there. So the important thing here is the relationship between the predator and the prey. And there's a lot of evolution here. In general, the prey don't want to get eaten, and the predator wants to be able to catch it. So there's always been an arms race. Maybe the prey have some kind of camouflage that makes it harder to see. Maybe it's equipped with spike, other nasty things that makes it harder to eat. Maybe its behavior makes it hard to catch. On the other hand, the predator will usually try to be as good as possible of catching the prey. It might have, excellent vision. It might be able to smell blood in the water. It might have a behavior that makes hunting a lot easier. But for a balanced ecosystem, you need the right balance between predator and prey. If we remove all the predators, what often happens is then the population of prey goes wild, and that can unsettle the entire ecosystem. So for a healthy ecosystem, we need the right balance between predators and prey. And that is why it can be a problem in ecosystems, because we humans tend to catch the largest predators, the tunas, the sharks, for eating. And this sends problems down the ecosystem, as we will talk about later. Thank you very much for staying with me.